Hi guys, welcome to ANIMEized. This is the English translated version of the novel Throne of Seal. The novel differs slightly from the Chinese animation or donghua. If you want more of these videos, please smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. Enjoy and have a blessed day.
Caier continued, each of us now has at least radiant-grade equipment, and we still have plenty of merit points left. It's true that it would be nice to get legendary equipment for everyone, but with our current strength, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone can make good use of powerful legendary equipment. Merit points should indeed be used to improve immediate combat capabilities. But merit points aren't just for acquiring equipment. Moreover, there are many areas where we can continue to improve. I believe, what we need most now, apart from enhancing our strength, is a period of stability. As for getting legendary equipment, we can wait until we've all reached the 7th rank before considering a full upgrade. I asked Grandpa Shadow about this, and in a martial-level demon hunting squad, having one legendary equipment piece for the entire team is already considered quite good. And what about us? Apart from Lin Sin's, your holy melody of the goddess, my reincarnation sword, and Shima's soon-to-be finished power pill of light are all bound to become legendary. Once HanYuan's shield of the giant god has a sky-silver crystal embedded in it, it will also advance to legendary status. We already have 5 legendary or higher-grade equipment pieces among us, and each of us has a spirit furnace, with 6 of us even having composite spirit furnaces. I dare say, if a martial-level demon hunting squad were to hold an internal competition, we might even win the championship. Today, you even defeated a 7th-ranked Temple Knight on your own without HanYu having to intervene. Saying all this, I want to tell you that our current strength is already quite formidable, so you don't need to worry about improving everyone's strength. Long HaoChen nodded in agreement, saying, "So, what do you think we should do next?" Caier replied, "Stick to your original plan. We can continue searching for legendary equipment. Just have Lin Sin set up his stall for half an hour each day. A legendary Great Ice Snow's pride is eye-catching enough. As long as he goes at a fixed time each day, someone will want to trade sooner or later. Internally, we can start using those remaining dragon crystals to enhance everyone's overall spiritual power. At the same time, everyone can cultivate their spiritual power individually. We should wait a while before entering the Tower of Eternity. Focus primarily on cultivating inner spiritual power, which will help calm our restless minds. We need this time to recuperate. Meanwhile, we can allocate some merit points for everyone to acquire the necessary skills. Raising our skills to the 6th rank will need some powerful secret techniques to enhance our combat abilities. Additionally, I believe that focusing on skills is better than equipment, because once you've learned a skill, you can use it forever. Long HaoChen smiled as he looked at Caier and said, "You're right. You should have told me all of this earlier." Caier shook her head gently and said, "Your decisions and plans weren't wrong either, and besides, you're the captain of our martial level No. 64 Demon Hunting Squad. We were just discussing this privately, so don't tell them I suggested it. A great team is often best represented by a single voice, even if we..." At this point, her face blushed slightly, but she didn't continue. Long HaoChen took Caier's hand and whispered, "You're truly my wise helper. Can I give you a hug?" "No," Caier exclaimed, floating away and landing on the ground, moving to the side. Since their candid meeting at the Dream Paradise Spirit Furnace Synthesis site, she had become much more reserved than before. She was reluctant to let Long HaoChen get close to her easily. Long HaoChen scratched his head in resignation. "Don't run away. Do you think I would force you?" Caier chuckled. "Hate it. Who's your wise helper? You're only 15, and you're already so mischievous." Long HaoChen chuckled and said, "I wonder who insisted on sharing a bed with me. It seems this person is even younger than me. You." Early morning, Long HaoChen, Caier, and their companions were sitting in the living room, having breakfast as usual. Shima Xian held a large bowl of porridge, slurping it up noisily. Chen Yin Er couldn't help but nudge the table and said, "Baldy, can you be a bit more dignified?" Lin Sin chuckled on the side and said, "Don't mind him, he's in a gloomy mood." Long HaoChen asked, "By the way, yesterday when you gave the dragon crystal to Miss Yi Wei Yang, what did she say, and what about Shima?" Lin Sin replied, "Miss Yi didn't want our dragon crystal. She said, what you said is right, the divine sword shouldn't be measured by money. Being able to restore its radiance is enough for her. If we were willing to compensate, she said that in the future, if she had any requests, we should do her a favor." Long HaoChen frowned. He would rather pay with the dragon crystal than make a promise to her. After some brief contemplation, he said, "Then today, go back to her and tell her that I can agree to one request, but it must be something I can do on my own, and it must not involve our team." "Okay." Lin Sin agreed. Long HaoChen looked at Shima Xian, who was still eating, and gave Lin Sin a questioning look. Lin Sin grinned and said, "He's feeling down. He saw that little white flower." But she told him directly, "I don't like bald guys, and I especially don't like bald priests." Then she just left. without even giving him a second glance. So now, he's drowning his sorrows in food. Chen Yin Er chuckled on the side and said, Shima, you're not giving up so easily, are you? Pursuing a girl was never that easy, but I can't help but feel that your chances with that little white flower are slim. Beauty and the Beast, the contrast is too strong, Shima Xian finally looked up, with a few grains of rice still on his face. Who said I'm giving up? I'm more determined in the face of adversity. She doesn't like bald guys, right? Brother medicinal pills, I'm going with you today. I'll wear a wig, okay. She doesn't like priests, so I'll wear armor today. It turns out, this guy tried to look refined yesterday, and wore a priest's robe when he went to the Holy Alliance auction with Lin Xin. Hearing his explanation, everyone couldn't help but laugh. HanYu chuckled and said, Shima, go for it, we'll support you mentally, and may you soon win over that little white flower. Shima Xian wasn't ugly at all. On the contrary, he had a handsome, masculine charm, with chiseled features that exuded strength and determination. His robust and towering physique easily gave people a sense of security. Lin Xin grinned and said, I think you don't even need the wig, just be yourself. Because even if you do win her over, she might be disappointed when she realizes you're not what she expected. It might lead to complications, you know? Wang Yuanyuan nodded and said, Brother medicinal pills is right. Since you're pursuing her, the first thing is to be sincere. Without sincerity, what else matters? Shima patted his bald head and said, with a look of frustration, I didn't know pursuing a girl was this hard. I thought being a captain was easier. What did you say? Caier, who had been silent, slowly raised her head. I didn't say anything. I'm full. After saying that, the bald guy fled. Caier turned to Long HaoChen and said, Is it really that easy? Then I'll create some challenges for you in the future. I'm full too. After that, she stood up and went back to her room. Long HaoChen didn't see, but as she left, there was a hint of a smile in her eyes. Long HaoChen watched in amazement as Caier left, and Long HaoChen looked innocent as he said, I feel like I got caught in the crossfire while lying down. Lin Xin chuckled and said, Boss, I'm not one to stir up trouble, but Shima's stirring up trouble between you and the vice captain. If I were you, I wouldn't tolerate it. Long HaoChen suddenly stood up, gave Lin Xin a brief glance, and said, I don't need to tolerate it. Then he shouted loudly towards someone's room, Shima Xian, come practice close combat with me. Lately, HanQian, the Deputy Grand Marshal of the Temple Alliance, Deputy Head of the Night Temple, and Night Commander, has been in a good mood. Ever since Long HaoChen, the genius, appeared in the Night Temple, he had been focusing most of his attention on handling matters related to the Night Temple. His attention had been primarily on Long HaoChen and the demon hunting squad he led. When Long HaoChen and his team successfully passed the assessment and became a martial-level demon hunting squad, HanQian had been genuinely concerned for a period of time. Although he is Long HaoChen's master and holds a high position in the Temple Alliance, the demon hunting squad has its independence, and even HanQian cannot easily interfere in its affairs. HanQian sent a 7th-rank Temple Knight to assess Long HaoChen for a simple reason. He hopes they won't take on more challenging missions through the martial-level demon hunting squad assessment. Didn't the Alliance just reward you with 1,000,000 merits? Be honest. And take some time to consolidate. However, he didn't expect Long HaoChen to have become so powerful, easily defeating 7th-rank Temple Knights with his 6th-rank power. Helpless, HanQian couldn't employ any more means. Just when he thought Long HaoChen and his demon hunting squad would take on tasks and leave the holy city, Long HaoChen and his companions chose to go into seclusion, hanging a seclusion sign outside the villa, free from external disturbances. And this closed-door cultivation has actually lasted for over 4 months. How could this discovery not delight HanQian? The outstanding performance of these children has not made them overly confident, and in this situation, they can still choose to consolidate their own strength. Meditate to strengthen what they've learned. You can say they already have the mindset of a truly powerful demon hunting squad. Surprisingly, these young people are even steadier than many experienced demon hunting squads. Yes, Long HaoChen and the others have indeed been in seclusion for over 4 months, and they plan to continue their seclusion for a while longer. They don't intend to end their seclusion process in the short term. However, today is an important day for them. Tower of Eternity. Long HaoChen, Caier, HanYu, Shima Xian, Wang Yuanyuan, HanYu, and Chen Yin Er lined up in battle. Leader, who among us will go? Shima Xian, eager to try, said to Long HaoChen. Not far in front of the 7 of them, there stood the red skeleton with whom they had fought and trained continuously, honing their close combat skills. Through their constant battles with this formidable skeleton, they had gradually grasped the secrets of ancient martial arts. And today, they were determined to overcome all the trials of the first level of the Tower of Eternity. Over the past 4 months, with Caier's guidance, Long HaoChen decided to lead his companions in focusing on cultivating their inner spiritual power, calming their restless hearts, and experiencing the changes in their own strength since reaching the 6th rank, honing the skills they've acquired, seeking to purchase legendary equipment, and using the heaven-defying Demon Dragon Clan's crystals along with various precious herbs to soak their bodies in water. The effects of the heaven-defying demon dragon's crystals are even greater than they had imagined. After removing impurities and dark attributes with rare herbs, with each soak, Long HaoChen and the others could feel the profound effects of strengthening their bodies. Whether it was strength, flexibility, defense, or attack, all had been significantly improved. However, with each use, the crystal's size would shrink a little, until it disappeared completely. Over the past 4 months, they had already used 3 heaven-defying demon dragon crystals, and everyone felt that their external spiritual power had only improved slightly. They had stopped soaking themselves in the crystals. However, their external spiritual power had not improved in vain, thanks to the use of auxiliary medicines, which cost them nearly 4 million gold coins plus 15,000 merits. They had also acquired 2 legendary pieces of equipment, as everyone had wished. One of them was a legendary heavy sword for HanYu, and the other belonged to Chen Yin Er, a legendary necklace called the Prayer Necklace. The legendary heavy sword was obtained by adding 100,000 merits to the Pride of Ice and Snow, and then adding the Prayer Necklace. Long HaoChen had also purchased a radiant heavy sword and some secret techniques. Now, the team's remaining total merits were only around 50,000. Although it seemed like a lot of million merits, they had already spent it all over the past 4 months. Over the past 4 months, they could be said to have been consuming these merits, and now, they were almost depleted. I'll go. This senior skeleton has taught us what it means to be aggressive like fire, and I hope to truly defeat him in a one-on-one situation, not in vain for the time he's been with us. Long HaoChen said in a deep voice. Everyone had no objections. They moved back slightly, creating enough space for him. With the brilliant holy shield in his left hand, and the newly purchased radiant ripple heavy sword in his right hand, Long HaoChen took big strides toward the proud and towering red skeleton. Both sides quickly closed in. Behind Long HaoChen, a golden light shone, and his dazzling 4 wings had already spread out. When he approached within 20 meters of the red skeleton, flames flickered in the eyes of the red skeleton, and its imposing 3-meter-tall body rushed at Long HaoChen like a blazing flame. Long HaoChen didn't back down. His steps suddenly quickened, and he charged toward the red skeleton, but he didn't activate any charging or assault skills. The distance between the two rapidly shortened, and when they were about 5 meters apart, the red skeleton suddenly crouched down, and its massive bone blade swiftly aimed for Long HaoChen's neck. Long HaoChen had already fought with it countless times, so he naturally knew that the red skeleton's crouching motion led to endless attacks. His forward steps remained unchanged, but his pace slowed slightly, and he became much more agile, suddenly bending down, tucking his arms behind, and dodging the red skeleton's strike. The red skeleton used its legs to push off, its body rising suddenly, and half-turning. At the same time, its left-hand shield swept toward Long HaoChen with overwhelming force. The red skeleton was already quite large in size, and its shield was extremely broad, making Long HaoChen feel there was no escape from this sweep. Of course, Long HaoChen could have flown up using his spiritual wings, but he chose not to. Inside the Tower of Eternity, height was also restricted, and if he flew up forcefully, it would be difficult to avoid hitting the aerial barrier. What's unimaginable is that, when it seemed like Long HaoChen couldn't evade, he made a move that was nearly impossible in combat. He crawled. Yes, at the moment when the red skeleton swung its shield horizontally, he actually crawled on the ground. The massive shield almost passed over him along his back. The shield's recoil, aimed at the ground, caused Long HaoChen to bounce up in the next instant from his prone position, and the radiant ripple radiated 1,000 rays of light, enveloping the red skeleton that had temporarily lost its shield protection. It was the twin dragons of light rain. It can be said that Long HaoChen's responses in these moments were nothing short of miraculous, as his flexibility greatly increased with the enhancement of his external spiritual power through the dragon crystal, allowing him to perform actions he couldn't have done before. The red skeleton didn't panic due to Long HaoChen's sudden attack, and its massive bone blade swiftly executed a diagonal strike, which was none other than the Azura strike. Yes, it executed the Azura strike with just one hand. It even caught the force of the shield's swing. In their numerous encounters with the red skeleton, Long HaoChen and his companions had learned one profound lesson in battle. In battle, no action is superfluous. However, this time, the red skeleton clearly miscalculated. Countless cold lights suddenly converged into one point, directly striking the edge of its bone blade. With a crisp sound, the red skeleton's massive body was actually pushed back a step, to the point that it couldn't execute the follow-up move with its left-hand shield. At this moment, Long HaoChen in his passive defense mode launched a full-scale counterattack. With a push of his left foot against the ground, Long HaoChen's body suddenly shot forward with the might of a sword, and the radiant ripple in his hand almost instantly turned into a brilliant white, followed by a white brilliance piercing through the sword, heading straight for the red skeleton. When the sword turned white, it naturally became a holy sword, and that point of white brilliance was the special attack in the holy sword state. The saintly brilliance. Even the red skeleton didn't dare to underestimate the power of the saintly brilliance, so it had no choice but to use its shield to protect itself, and with a thunderous roar, the mighty power of the saintly brilliance forced it to take another step back. And at this moment, Long HaoChen had already reached it up close. The brilliant holy shield had already been retracted, and now, Long HaoChen held only the radiant ripple, shimmering with the brilliance of a holy sword. Azura strike. In an instant, Long HaoChen seemed to enter a special state, emitting an incredibly sharp sword intent. A simple Azura strike was executed by him with a feeling almost as if his body and sword had become one, and you could clearly see, centered around his body, a 5-meter diameter white halo instantly contracted inward. Because Long HaoChen's connection was so fast that the red skeleton had no chance to counterattack, it could only rely on its shield for defense. And at the same time, it tilted its body slightly, using the edge of its shield to try to deflect the force and counter immediately. However, it underestimated the power of Long HaoChen's strike. The moment when his spirit, energy, and mind reached their peak, Long HaoChen's strike was filled with an unbeatable spirit. The sword intent was something Long HaoChen had gradually comprehended from the hymn of the goddess of light. The reason he didn't use a divine sword was that he didn't want to destroy the red skeleton's core. Boom! The shield shattered, and the red skeleton was actually sent flying by this strike, and because its body had been angled diagonally towards Long HaoChen, it even spun in midair while being propelled backward. At this moment, the 4 wings spread open behind Long HaoChen finally flapped, and lightning-like golden light flashed in the air for an instant. He kicked the red skeleton in the waist, and at the same time, the radiant ripple severed the red skeleton's grip on the bone blade. With its right hand, in the next instant, Long HaoChen in midair spun halfway and delivered an elbow strike, and the tip of his right elbow struck the red skeleton's throat. This series of strikes were almost instantaneous. And in the next instant, the two of them were abruptly separated, with the red skeleton forcefully thrown 3 zhang, around 10 meters, away, crashing onto the ground. The right hand that had been gripping the bone blade had also separated from its body and fallen to the ground. Watching this incredibly spectacular battle, the members of the martial level number 64 demon hunting squad couldn't help but show eager expressions. They had won. After nearly a year of effort, they had finally defeated this powerful red skeleton. And it was in a one-on-one situation, with Long HaoChen not even needing assistance from Yating and HanYu. This was a mark of respect for a strong opponent. Ugh! Red skeleton seemed to let out a moan, and it slowly propped itself up from the ground with its left hand. Long HaoChen once again released the brilliant holy shield from the eternal melody to guard himself, preparing to continue the battle. However, the red skeleton did not attack again. Instead, it gazed at Long HaoChen for a full 10 seconds, then it slowly nodded at him, and surprisingly, it knelt down on one knee, making a gesture of bowing to Long HaoChen. What is this? Long HaoChen looked at it in surprise and said, Senior, you don't need to do this. Master, number 12 Guardian reports to you. A deep and hoarse voice echoed from the red skeleton's mouth. In any world outside the Tower of Eternity, any creature that wishes to harm you must step over my shattered bones. As soon as the words fell, the massive body of the red skeleton suddenly turned into a red light and flew swiftly towards Long HaoChen, while in midair, its body became smaller and smaller, until it reached Long HaoChen. It had turned into a small cluster of red flames, and in the next instant, it disappeared into the eternal melody. Long HaoChen felt a slight warmth in his chest. And when he opened his robe and looked down, he could clearly see, on the white skull head gem of the eternal melody, which was emitting a golden light, a small cluster of red flames flickering slightly. Number 12 Guardian? Looking at the ground where even the broken hand, bone blade, and shield fragments had disappeared without a trace, Long HaoChen couldn't help but be stunned. Boss, what's going on? Is it a skill or enhanced spiritual power? Shima Xian asked eagerly. They all saw the red light, but they didn't hear number 12 Guardian's voice, so they assumed it was the same as before. Long HaoChen shook his head and smiled bitterly, saying, I'm afraid I'm going to be forced to become a necromancer. After repeating number 12 Guardian's words, he said, If I'm not mistaken, I should now have the ability to summon that red skeleton as a guardian. Wait a moment, and I'll give it a try. As he spoke, Long HaoChen slowly closed his eyes, and in the next moment, a red light flashed, and the tall red skeleton, number 12 Guardian, had already appeared in front of Long HaoChen. Its previously broken arm and damaged shield were completely restored, and a fervent and unrestrained aura slowly emanated from it. Long HaoChen opened his eyes, and he realized that his soul seemed to be connected to this red skeleton, and it could fully obey his commands in battle. Moreover, it had a certain level of self-awareness, similar to the combat instinct they had seen before. Everyone looked at each other, and no one knew whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. They all knew the disasters that necromancers had brought to the continent in the past. And Long HaoChen was a knight with the son of light constitution. If he really became a necromancer, it would be too ironic, and the Temple Alliance would never accept it. However, number 12 Guardian had already entered Long HaoChen's eternal melody on its own. So could it be expelled now? Long HaoChen couldn't completely control his eternal melody either. HaoChen. Caier held Long HaoChen's hand and said, Actually, I think you're overthinking it. In this world, there's nothing that's purely good or evil. Necromancers can also be associated with the light element, so what's impossible, having this power, doesn't mean you have to use it. Moreover, this red skeleton with the soul of a powerful being doesn't have any hint of death about it, and when you summon it, it will only be to deal with the demons. So, why should you have any psychological burden using it to slay demon invaders? HanYu nodded and said, "The vice captain is right. Although this Tower of Eternity was left behind by the necromancer Saint Illisec, it doesn't hold any hostility towards you or us. Instead, it has helped us continually improve our strength, and as long as we remain true to ourselves, public opinion doesn't matter. Furthermore, we can easily conceal its existence." Shima Xian added, "Yeah, more than 70% of demon hunting squads end up in the territory of the demons. Who knows, maybe one day we'll die in battle there. Boss, don't think too much about it. If you've received this power, just accept it. Let's go, and let's continue to see what's on the first floor." With the support of his comrades, Long HaoChen's face relaxed a bit. In fact, after all this time, he had also come to terms with it, but he didn't want any discord in the team because of this. He had underestimated the trust his companions had in him, and no one questioned his decision. With his spiritual power connected to the eternal melody, Long HaoChen's thoughts stirred slightly, and number 12 Guardian had already transformed into a red light and concealed itself within. It seemed that it could also be nourished by the eternal melody itself. "Maintain formation, and let's continue forward," Long HaoChen shouted. Holding the brilliant holy shield and the ripples of light, he led the way at the front. The ripples of light, an illustrious grade heavy sword, had a very powerful skill attached to it, which, when used in an attack, would create a spiritual power ripple that resembled a phantom, serving as an additional second attack. Its power was roughly 1/3 of the direct attack. In other words, when Long HaoChen used the holy sword to attack, the additional power of the second attack was 1/3 of the holy sword's power. This was why no 12 Guardian couldn't completely block Long HaoChen's attacks earlier. Of course, Long HaoChen also understood that, if number 12 Guardian had a set of equipment at the same level as his own, it wouldn't be so easy to defeat him. After all, in terms of combat skills, Long HaoChen had learned from him. This time, they had stealthily advanced 20 meters, and only then did the Tower of Eternity react. And it seemed that they were getting closer and closer to the end of the first floor, and they could vaguely see a tall statue at the innermost part of the first floor. A sparkling blue light descended from the sky, and in the blue light, a skeleton that looked similar to number 12 Guardian slowly rose from the ground, and an ice blue aura seemed to instantly infuse its body. However, its body did not swell like number 12 Guardian's. Instead, it remained at a height of about 1.8 meters, but its entire skeleton had turned deep blue. And 2 blue soul fires flickered intensely in its eye sockets, and in its right hand, a long staff appeared silently. "Skeletons of the magical type, everyone be careful," Long HaoChen shouted loudly, and at the same time, his body rushed toward the blue skeleton like an arrow, almost instantly accelerating to his maximum speed. He had a premonition that this should be the final challenge of the first floor of the Tower of Eternity, and by passing this challenge, everything on the first floor of the Tower of Eternity would be revealed to them. Fiery golden flames instantly surged around Long HaoChen's body, illuminating every corner of the Tower of Eternity, not only to counter his clearly ice-based opponent, but also to provide illumination for his companions to see their surroundings, so that everyone could deal with the attacks from the blue skeleton. The blue skeleton was fundamentally different from the red skeleton in the 6th challenge, as when its soul fire ignited, it didn't make a sound, but instead appeared extremely calm. Faced with Long HaoChen's charge, its body slid backward as if on ice, while at the same time, it pointed its staff lightly, and a dense mist had already surged toward Long HaoChen. It's time for me to show my strength." Lin Xin's excited voice sounded. A layer of blue flames suddenly appeared in front of Long HaoChen, as if he had emitted them himself. Just as the mist from the blue skeleton's staff reached Long HaoChen, he felt a sudden chill throughout his body. And his solar fire, which he had released, seemed to be completely suppressed, and his movements noticeably slowed down, and a deep sense of coldness spread through his body, as if his soul had been dulled by the mist. However, this sensation lasted only a moment, as Lin Xin's heart of fire had already blocked in front of him. When the mist touched the heart of fire, a strange popping sound immediately occurred, and the heart of fire began to weaken, while the mist rapidly dissipated. Undoubtedly, the mist released by the skeleton was not ordinary, but Lin Xin's heart of fire was also extraordinary, and in the clash of the two, Lin Xin's heart of fire had the upper hand. Of course, this was also because Long HaoChen's solar fire had already weakened the skeleton's attack. The soul fire in the blue skeleton's eye sockets flickered slightly, and its staff traced a mysterious path in the air, a deep chant that was inaudible, but a crystalline blue ice flower floated out from its staff. The speed at which the ice flower flew didn't seem fast, but Long HaoChen felt a sudden distortion in his surroundings. And then everything around him turned icy blue. From the perspective of the others, Long HaoChen's body paused briefly, and then he was completely enveloped by a massive ice flower. Such powerful magic. At this moment, The members of the martial level No. 64 Demon Hunting Squad naturally wouldn't wait any longer, and they launched a full-scale attack on the blue skeleton. Lin Sin's Heart of Fire immediately landed on the large ice flower, attempting to melt it, while caier, HanYu, Shima Xian, and HanYu all charged toward the blue skeleton simultaneously. Their actions were extremely coordinated, as the four of them charged separately. Although it couldn't be said they attacked from four directions, but naturally keeping their distance would prevent the blue skeleton from concentrating its attacks. Chen Yin Er had already sat down on the ground, holding her crystal ball in both hands and silently chanting an incantation. At her chest, two strange golden and silver lights quietly emerged, like two flames swirling around her crystal ball. With each revolution, the spiritual energy fluctuations around Chen Yin Er's body would increase, and in the center of her forehead, a thin white line quietly appeared, emitting a faint white light, faced with the full-scale attack of the group. The blue skeleton didn't retreat, but instead, it suddenly pointed its staff toward the ground. With a loud boom, the massive ice flower that had encased Long HaoChen exploded violently. The powerful explosion scattered countless shards of ice, and these shattered ice shards covered the entire corridor, creating a huge gust of wind. Even with the cultivation levels of the group, their forward momentum abruptly halted. Caier's dark golden dagger transformed into numerous points of light in the air, and with each strike, it would pierce through a chunk of ice. But her gaze was fixed on Long HaoChen's direction. Not only her, HanYu, Shima Xian, and HanYu were the same. The explosion of the ice flower was incredibly powerful. Could it have harmed Long HaoChen as well? Long HaoChen was fine, at least on the surface, he appeared intact. However, the fiery golden-red flames that had surrounded him and the heart of fire added by Lin Sin had completely extinguished. His face also appeared somewhat pale, and there was a clear layer of frost on his body. A thick chill pervaded the corridor, and everyone could clearly feel the stiffness in their bodies. It's important to note that their external spiritual power had greatly increased after soaking in the dragon crystal-based potion, and it had significantly improved, even if they hadn't fully absorbed the potion's effects. But at least their external spiritual power had surpassed 3,000. But even so, they all felt stiffness in their limbs. 7th rank, without a doubt, the cultivation level of this blue skeleton was at least 7th rank, and it had control over magic similar to the ancient martial techniques of the red skeleton. It could be described as perfect. The clear cry of the phoenix resounded in this moment. The blazing heart of fire flared up in an instant, its intense heat rapidly dispelling the cold in the air. At the same time, the blue fire phoenix soared into the sky, soaring over the crowd, heading straight for the blue skeleton. Lin Sin no longer cared about the spirit furnace backlash. This blue skeleton was so powerful, all her companions were slowed down by it. If it continued to attack, it would be difficult for them to pass this level. The 7 members of the martial level number 64 Demon Hunting Squad had long established teamwork. HanYu raised his legendary golden-red heavy sword abruptly. With a loud shout, a thick golden-red aura instantly covered his entire body. It wasn't flames, but a pure change in color. Even his eyes were tinged with golden-red, and the stiffness in his body disappeared in an instant, leaving behind a trail of golden-red light, charging straight at the blue skeleton. Shima Xian's body shifted sideways, positioning himself in front of Long HaoChen. His power pill of light had undergone a complete reforge a month ago, and he held it in his hand now. Compared to before, the size of the power pill of light hadn't changed much, but it had turned into a dark gold color, and it exuded an aura of ferocity. Originally a radiant-level power pill of light, after the reforging, it had been elevated to the legendary level, and if it weren't for the enhancement of Shima Xian's spiritual power by the dragon crystal, he wouldn't be able to wield this terrifying equipment now.